Hey everyone, welcome to another video. I wasn't sure if I wanted to make this video because this project has been sort of a roller coaster ride, going back and forth many times before coming to the final result, which I still feel can be improved, and I will hopefully with time. This project forced me to rewire my brain in an attempt to create something that makes sense functionally in a fictional world, because it is quite different from what I had done in my previous personal projects, which are mostly keyframe art, paintings, sketches and studies. This video could be helpful for anyone trying to create worlds and meaningful designs that are backed up by solid research, references and logical development. And I strongly believe that this sort of an approach could be applied to a wide range of subjects and hopefully even create a beautiful design-oriented portfolio piece. So without any further delay, let's get started. When I initially started this project, my goal was to have some fun designing a bike for merchants living in a desert area in a dystopian future Earth. I knew the bike needed to look rugged and salvaged, and so I asked myself all the W's, what, where, for who, when, followed all my processes, collected references, created thumbnails, painted over, and this is what I ended up with. Disappointing, right? I mean, while these designs ticked all the boxes from the design brief that I showed you earlier, these designs felt boring, cheap and forgetful, and it didn't align with my vision that I had for this bike. These designs didn't inspire or challenge me to think creatively, and so I discarded them immediately. One thing that I learned from this is that it's easy to come up with an idea, but it's equally difficult to come up with an idea that is cool. It may not even be worthwhile asking the right questions if the idea doesn't stand out on its own, which happened in my case. While I believe this might not always be true, I realized that an idea is cool if it does a few things beyond merely following the design principles. If it forces you to think creatively and out of the box for solutions, if it makes your audience stop and look at it for a few seconds longer, which makes it iconic and thought-provoking, and if you make it cool, of course. After discarding those designs, I started fresh with more brainstorming, focusing on asking the right questions to make the same idea cool. And around this time, I also began going over Scott Robertson's How to Draw book and found a useful chart in chapter 9, which I followed for my design. I added important keywords and looked for opportunities to make this idea cool. As you can see, I have a goal, aesthetics and construction rows, and I have written down all the things that I want to achieve with this idea. And as the project progressed, I began refining these ideas. For the shape and character of the bike, I drew inspiration from tourer and adventure bikes. I aimed for it to be large, chunky and front heavy, prioritizing durability over speed. This bike is featuring a robust engine designed to be tough and capable of covering long distances. I was able to incorporate much of my motorcycle touring experience into this design, which made this process extremely enjoyable. I developed additional details about the tech that defines the power, movement and steering, which I'll briefly discuss in the next chapter. Additionally, there are a couple of things that I kept in mind that I wanted to achieve with this idea. One is making it iconic. I wanted to come up with a design that could be iconic. All great designs that you see out there stay with you. For example, Kanida's bike from Akira, Batpod, Batmobile, TIE Fighters, Lightsaber, Millennium Falcon, Robocop, and many more, because they're iconic and cool. Next is form and function. A good design will always, remind people of something, and our brain is very good at, assigning known shapes to functions because we have evolved to do so. For example, when you see a hammer, you know that its purpose is for hammering. The same goes for a comb, a screwdriver, and a pair of glasses. Their functions are pretty obvious. A good design is simple and grounded at its core, and the audience gets it immediately, which brings me to my last point, that is grounded in reality. The idea or construction of a motorcycle in our mind is fundamentally composed of three parts: the front with a tank, handlebar, and engine, the middle with a seat and a swing arm, and the rear with a tail and an exhaust. Although I'm sketching these ideas to be unconventional, deviating too much from a traditional motorcycle design could unintentionally transform this into something else, which I want to avoid. Even if I were to make it hover, it still needs to maintain a sense of realism. As I sketched ideas for the design, I also researched technology the bike would use, how it would power up and move forward, how it would brake, turn left or right, and how it would park. And these became even more challenging because my bike has no tires. Depending on your design, you might venture into a little bit of world building, which I did because I plan to expand this project into a larger world. And I will reveal more about this world and its unique features in future videos as I continue designing and developing it. For now, what's relevant to this design is that the inhabitants of this future Earth use electromagnetism to power and levitate objects, as fossil fuel reserves are depleted. They also rely on the principle of gyroscopic equilibrium to maintain balance and steer the vehicle. Once I was satisfied with the sketch, I began translating it into 3D. There's no definitive right or wrong time to transition your designs into 3D. I think it really depends on your personal preference. Some people prefer to resolve everything in their sketches before moving into 3D. Personally, I find working in both 2D and 3D, going back and forth simultaneously, is more effective, as viewing the design in 3D often reveals new possibilities to me. And modeling this bike in 3D was quite a challenge because unlike my previous projects where I could stay loose and rough during the modeling stage, this time I needed to be very precise. Before, I mainly focused on modeling what's visible in the camera or in the concept or in the shot, and didn't really worry about what was on the other side. However, with this project, I wanted to model this entire bike to have that freedom of creating a shot from wherever I wanted, and also to create a turntable display at the end. So I'm not very good with 3D and have little to no experience with hard surface modeling. In order to be able to execute what I have in mind, I watched a few Blender Bros hard surface modeling tutorials on YouTube and did a course of their free hard surface modeling tutorial, which really helped me model certain parts of the bike. Coming to texturing, it's a different thing to texture an organic stuff where you can stay loose, but texturing hard surface might get a little tricky if the texture isn't wrapped properly around the model, which happened in my case. I tried a few things for texturing that I was familiar with, but those didn't work like I wanted it to. And in the end, I referenced Rasmus Paulsen's shader breakdown. This involved creating an albedo texture map from scratch and using it to derive other maps, which included ambient occlusion, scratches, and edge detection to create additional details. While this shader helped immensely, I don't think I was able to execute it properly, but I wasn't really bothered because I knew I would paint over it anyways. Once the modeling and texturing was done, I wanted to do a keyframe art, a turntable, and some additional sketches to make it a post. I got this render and started to paint a scene where I wanted to show this merchant guy on his bike. Got a bunch of images from textures.com, Photobash, Pinterest, and then finished the paint over. Next, I did some sketches to show the engine and inner workings. I will not mind doing a tutorial to share my painting and photo best techniques if I get a positive response on this video. So you know what to do, guys. Maybe I'll come up with another tutorial showing my painting and photo best techniques. I hope you find something useful to take away from this video. While it doesn't provide a step-by-step guide to designing something, I believe this video delves into crucial aspects of design thinking, approach, and strategies that you can extract and incorporate into your own designs. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, this isn't a tutorial, but rather a sharing of my experiences while designing this bike. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. Links are in the description, and until next time.